Hello aspirants, very good morning to all of you. So friends, welcome back to Anthropology PYQ series. So let's try to decode every question and let's master every concept. So friends, as a part of today's discussion, let us delve into another important question from Anthropology paper 2 of 2025. So first, let's look at the question of the day that's there with us. So the question of the day for us is that write short notes on the following in 150 words. So the question is all about impact of urbanization and industrialization on the tribal communities of India. So this is the basic demand and this is the basic question. So that is there with us. So those who have joined online, so did anyone try to attempt the question? Have you tried to attempt it? So the question is very direct and straightforward from the syllabus section. So you can simply see and you can just simply see this particular topic in the syllabus also directly. So this is a direct question and very simple question, so which you can have relevance even in the Indian society also. So now let's try to discuss and let's try to know basic aspects about this particular question. So here in today's discussion, so I would want you more to speak because this question is a direct question and you can give your insights and you can give your inputs into the discussion. So shall we proceed with the discussion? So have you joined? So can you confirm those who have joined in the online? Shall we proceed? Right, so first, let's try to understand this in a systematic fashion. So before we understand the impact of the urbanization and industrialization, let us try to understand what basically is urbanization and what basically is industrialization. So we should understand that in a very simple fashion. So when we see from the perspective of the basic thing, what is industrialization? So can you say what is industrialization? What is the urbanization? Can you define it in a simple fashion? What you can see there? So first, when we see from the perspective of industrialization, so what happens there? So basically, industrialization refers to, it's a process which involves, there would be a strategic shift from the manual labor to the mechanized labor. That's one important aspect. Furthermore, if you see, so there would be a simple shift from agrarian economy to the manufacturing economy. So that would be another important aspect. There would be more a kind of establishment of industries and decline of the traditional way of lifestyle. So this could be another important change that we can see in industrialization. So in a very simple fashion to understand what is industrialization means, so when the concentration of the secondary sector increases than that of the primary sector, so that prevails industrialization, right? So that's one important aspect. So what's it? So moving from conventional practices to mechanical practices. Very good. So it's one other way we can put it forward. So good when you study. So now let's see what kind of changes we can see here. So basically, as I have said, so industrialization, it's a process, so which involves various aspects. So a process which involves shift from manual labor to mechanized labor. So this is one simple change. So mechanized labor means what? Mechanized labor means simply mechanization. So machines will be more. So that's one important thing. Then there will be shift from agrarian economy to manufacturing economy or industrial economy. So this would be another important change that you can see. Is that it clear? So then furthermore, so what change we can have? So here we can see that replacement of So traditional agricultural way of life with unconventional industrial way of life. So these are certain aspects you should remember. So what happens in industrialization? Because without understanding what is industrialization, so how can we understand the impact of the industrialization? So that's the basic thing. So that's where you have to understand what is industrialization. So it's a basic process. So where you can see the concentration of more establishment of industrial areas. So then with that, so when industrial areas, industrial kind of industries have been established more and more, so basically the way of lifestyle also changes. So that's one important aspect that you should remember. So I hope it is clear to you all now. So now, in the similar fashion, let's try to understand what is urbanization. Now, from your perspective, what do you mean by urbanization? Can you able to just type in the chat box? Urbanization means what? So urbanization, so very good. So good, very good morning to all once again. So now, when we see from urbanization, urbanization is also another important process. So that we can see in the society. So it's also a process which involves increase in the concentration of the population in the urban areas when compared with the rural areas. So the concentration of the residents of the people in the urban areas will slightly go on increasing. So that process is basically known as the urbanization in one simple manner. Okay, so that's we can remember, which involves increase in concentration of population in urban areas than rural areas. So this would be one basic aspect that you can remember. So what is urbanization? Because the people are getting more accustomed to urban way of lifestyle. So in other ways, how we can say is that when there is a strategic shift from the rural way of lifestyle to the urban way of lifestyle. So that is also one another way you can say. So that's one thing. So shift from rural to urban by development of infrastructure. So that's another way. So shift from rural to urban. So okay. So both of you are trying to pitch one and the same. So this is one important aspect. So then, in other ways, how we can define urbanization? In other ways, we can also define it as that. So we can say that expansion of the urban and suburban areas towards the rural areas and subsequent increase in the concentration of the people in the urban areas. So this is how, so basically we can explain or we can discuss the urbanization. So here when we see the basic characteristics of lifestyle, so changes. So there we can see lifestyle changes with urbanization can be witnessed. So these are some basic aspects that you should remember before we proceed towards the impact. Right? So now, so these processes, be it could be urbanization, be it could be industrialization, be it could be modernization, be it could be globalization, be it could be westernization, be it could be sanskritization. So there are so many socio-cultural processes, and so there are so many processes which will systematically affect the Indian society, which will systematically affect the tribal society, and which will systematically affect the various parts of the society. So let's try to explore particularly about our urbanization and industrialization and its impact only on the tribal communities in today's discussion. Is that it clear? Now, so if you see from the perspective of the impact of these two processes. So when we look at the impacts, so here basically the impacts could be generally of two types. So one type, we can say it has positive impact and we can have negative impacts. So positive impact and negative impact. Now just text in the comment box. So what kind of positive changes or positive impacts that you can see? What kind of positive impacts you can observe on the tribal communities through the modernization and through urbanization and industrialization? Text in the chat box. Positive impacts will be there and negative impacts. Right? So when we look from these impacts point of view, there would be impact on the social, cultural impact. There would be impact on economic lifestyle. So economic impact could be there. And there we can further see impacts on other aspects like educational impact. So like that we can see economic impact, educational impact, or the socio-cultural impacts, etc. So right, so now let's see what positive impacts that you are pitching. So Pragnya is saying creates awareness about the tribal rights, brings the sense of confidence in the tribals. Very good, so very good point. Then integration with the main land Indian people, very good. That's another important point. So Venushri, good. So then livelihood opportunities, very good. So Venushri, so whatever you are texting is appropriate. So furthermore, so access to resources, very good. So then even political impacts is a positive impact. So we can just have it, political or political and governance impact. So you can have this also. So governance related impacts. So you can have these kind of positive impacts. So we will try to understand them in a systematic fashion. Now, so there could be some negative impacts also. So on broader sense, if you see, so same on these aspects we can have. So on socio-cultural impacts, furthermore, we can have things like economic impacts. So furthermore, you can have some things like the other aspects like some common tribal lifestyle. There could be impact on this. So these are some of the negative impacts. So let's see them in a systematic fashion. So there, next. So we are getting that language barrier, lack of skills. Okay, we'll see. So negatives. So now let us try to understand these impacts in a systematic fashion. So first, let's try to pitch the positive impacts. So what kind of positive impacts that we can see in the tribals? So when we look from the perspective of the positive impacts, so as you all said, so positive impacts. So under positive impacts, first and foremost thing, when there would be industrialization or urbanization, then very important change, that impact that we can see in the life of tribals is that they'll get integrated with the mainstream life. So that is very important aspect. That means access to the mainstream life. So that's the first point that you should remember. So very basic aspect, that access to the mainstream life. This is very important aspect. So when they get access to the mainstream life, so slowly there is possibility of integration of the tribals with the normal people. So this further leads to slowly we can integrate. So integration of tribals with mainstream people. So this will happen. So when they will get integrated with the mainstream population or mainstream people, so we can say mainstream population. So when they get this, so obviously this further leads to some other important positive impacts. Like first, they'll be exposed to mainstream life and mainstream population. So as the mainstream population are getting better livelihood as well as employment opportunities, so these people also will get some sort of better livelihood and employment opportunities. So that's one important aspect. So they'll get better livelihood and employment opportunities. So this is one important aspects. So not only this employment and livelihood opportunities, along with that, they will get better access to the education and healthcare facilities. So this would be another important aspect. So basically, if you happen to observe in the tribal areas, so mostly they'll be isolated, so geographically isolated. So mostly they will not be having the access to the education, access to the healthcare facilities, and furthermore the modern facilities. So when they are integrated with the mainstream population, so usually they will get better access to healthcare and educational facilities. So furthermore, can you text other important impacts? So you have mentioned so various aspects. So furthermore, can you further mention important aspects? So you have said access to resources and okay, so in negatives you have mentioned. So creates awareness about tribal rights, brings the sense of confidence. So this we can have it. So now, first, they have got access to mainstream life. So with this, they'll get slowly integrated with the mainstream population. And once they will get integrated, so then they can have better livelihood as well as employment opportunities. And along with this, they will get the better access to the educational as well as the healthcare facilities. So when they get education, so it creates or it brings a kind of awareness amongst the tribal rights as well as brings a sense of confidence. So this is another important effect that you can have. So there you can remember that. So a better it further brings awareness about the tribal rights and they can go for tribal rights advocacy. They can advocate, they can raise voice on behalf of themselves, stating that these are my rights and they can do that. So this concept, so this the better sense of confidence or this tribal rights advocacy or the awareness about the tribal rights and their things, so we can see with respect to the Dongria cones. So do you remember Dongria cones? So what has happened with respect to Vedanta Mains kind of project? So Vedanta mining and the Dongria cones issue. So this has happened. So with respect to the Dongria cones, you can remember the example. So Dongria cones and Vedanta mining project. So what has happened here means the government of India has given approval, in principle approval, to establish the Vedanta mining in and around the Niyamgiri hills of Odisha. So there what has happened means, so they were intended to just extract bauxite resources. So as the Niyamgiri Hills were rich in bauxite resources, so the Vedanta Mining Company has obtained a license and it was about to start its mining activities in Niyamgiri Hills. So what was key here means, so for Dongriya cones, the Niyamgiri Hills, Niyamgiri Hills is considered as the abode of Niyam Raja. So Niyam Raja means, so for tribal people, so Niyam Raja was considered as their family and their ancestral deity. So when there was the mining activities, they felt that so their entire identity, cultural identity is getting lost. So the hills are getting damaged. So they got panicked. So with that, so hundreds and thousands of the Dongriya cones went on to came onto the roads and they advocated against this mining activity done by the Vedanta company. So then the case moved on to various judiciary aspects. Finally, the case went on to Supreme Court. So in Supreme Court, so Dongriya cones got a positive verdict. So where only one question that Supreme Court asked for the government is that, so who is the authority who can decide for the permissions for such kind of mining activities in the tribal areas? So then the answer that they obtained was, it was the Gram Sabhas. So the authority to just give permission for such kind of mining activities is Gram Sabha. So this entire thing changed the course of this particular Vedanta mining activity. So then what has happened? So slowly several Gram Sabhas have been conducted and in these areas, and so all the Gram Sabhas have unanimously said that these mining activities should not continue in this particular area. So that's how so the Vedanta mining and the Dongriya cones in the Odisha region, so that brought a kind of confidence and a sense of confidence, and they raised their voices against the some sort of injustices that were happening with their community. So that's how so the positive impact with urbanization is that, so they have got education, with this they have got some sort of tribal rights advocacy and confidence. So that's very, very important case study. So you can remember that and you can mention that such kind of case studies. Is that clear? Now, furthermore, so next, so this is given in the confidence to participate in political front and flight for tribal rights. Okay, good. So that's also another important thing. So these were some of the important aspects. So they can have all such kind of positive aspects. So further, if you see, so what another important things that we can have. So when we look from the perspective of other important impacts, so we can have some of the negative impacts as well. So with this, so as you are saying, so we can also incorporate, so they have for political, we can say political participation and subsequent advantages. That means they could able to raise their voice, tribals could able to raise their voice in the representatives as in the assemblies and parliaments and all those things. So this is how, so there could be some of the positive impacts on the tribal people. So one important aspect you can remember. Now, what about the negative impacts that we can have? So now, can you text the negative impacts again? So what kind of negative impacts that you can have? So systematically, so here when you are writing a point, so you have to just systematically use some of the case studies also. So negative impacts. So what kind of negative impacts we can see? So when we look from the perspective of the negative impacts, so first and foremost negative impact that we can see is some issues with respect to the land alienation as well as the tribal displacement. So when there is establishment of an industry, so in a particular tribal area, so what happens primarily is that, so tribals have to be translocated, or tribals have to be displaced from that particular place. So when we have to do this, so then in that case what we have to do, so we have to just alienate them. That means in their own land, so they'll be getting alienated. So land alienation as well as tribal displacement would be one of the important negative impact. So first and foremost negative impact that you can remember is this. So land alienation and tribal displacement. So this is one thing. So we have so many examples also. So when there was construction of Hirakud Dam, so that was a developmental project. So but it's one of the important manifestation that we can see from the tribal urbanization. So one of those things. So that's one important aspect. So there was displacement of thousands of the Kones and tribal Goans and tribes. So that's one important aspect. Okay, so very good. So then example that you can have is with the Hirakud Dam construction, or you can see about even Bokaro steel plant establishment. So during Bokaro steel plant establishment also there was systematic displacement and systematic movement of the tribals from their forest places to the surrounding places. So this is one important aspect, so that we can see. So try to remember it and try to catch this. So furthermore, so what we can have? So furthermore, if you see, so when they are just displaced from their own place, so their next impact, this leads to the loss of tribal culture. So this we can have. Loss of tribal culture in the sense their primary mode of lifestyle will change. So that means, so changes in traditional way of lifestyle. Changes in the traditional way of lifestyle occurs. So what is the traditional way of lifestyle? So what includes this? So when we talk about the cultural change, so there could be a systematic effect or systematic impact on the marriage forms that we can see. So where certain tribes are polygamous, certain tribes are polyandrous, certain tribes are the polygynandrous, and certain tribes are different, following different marriage forms. So now there could be change in the marriage form. So then there could be change in the family system. So that would be one thing. And there could be change in the kinship ties. And further, there could be changes with respect to the belief systems and particularly religion. And there could be changes in the economic lifestyle also. So this is where we will have another important negative impact. So there, one important aspect that we can see is with respect to the negative impact. So economic impact. So what is the major thing here? So they will have to shift from the traditional economic mode of practices to the unconventional industrialized way of practices. So this creates a kind of chaos in the tribal lives. So this is one thing. So impact on the traditional economic way of subsistence. So there would be shift. Let's say, for example, they might be following shifting cultivation. So let's assume. So shifting cultivation. So from shifting cultivation, they should practice some industrial livelihood. So the livelihood will change. So that's one important thing. So now, what if these tribes are not aware of the technology? So mostly tribal people do not have the education. So when they do not have the education, they don't know about the technology. When they don't know about the technology, then what about their excellence here? So can they survive more? So it's not possible. So it's very difficult for them to just survive to this kind of practices. So this is one important aspect. So that's one important impact that we can see. Furthermore, so as you're all saying that, so they will, when they shift from this traditional modes of subsistence to the industrial modes of subsistence, then we can see one important phenomena that is known as proletarianization. Proletarianization of tribals. So that means tribals will become, the proletariats. Tribals become proletariat class. That means it is in simple fashion known as the working class or working group people. So this is a major negative impact that we can see, because they were not destined and they were not trained and they were not done in this particular thing, but still they'll become a working class. So this further makes them for some other negative aspects. So because of this, what may happen? So they may not excel in their works. So as they may not excel in their works, so financially they will not get much income and all those things. So there could be one possible thing. So because of this, so there we can see rise in indebtedness and relative poverty. Could rise. So that is another important impact, negative impact that we can see. So furthermore, so what else you have said? So to give loss of their traditions, get mocked by the mainland people, who are their customs, okay, lack of skills, language barrier, okay, right, indebtedness, land alienation, poverty, okay, good. So impact on the language, impact loss of tribal culture practices, yes, good. So there are some of the important aspects. So first thing is that we have to remember that changes in their socio-cultural lifestyle. So let's say, for example, the marriage forms may change. So furthermore, so belief systems. So now originally they may have some of the primitive forms of religious beliefs. So it could be animism, animatism, or we can have the totemism or the fetishism. So there are so many ancient primitive forms of religious belief systems. Now they will have to lose that belief systems, right? And they will have to lose the traditional way of economic modes of subsistence, and as they do not have the technological advancements, so they will land up into the relative poverty and indebtedness kind of situation. So like this, tribals will have to face lot of issues, okay? And furthermore, so there would be altered way of lifestyle. So be it could be economically, be it could be politically, be it could be sociologically, so they will have to change their lifestyle completely. So this further creates some sort of chaos among the tribes. So that's how the urbanization and the industrialization kind of things, though they are developmental in nature, but still they will have a kind of mixed impact on the tribal people. So this is how, so where you can talk about the mixed impact of the urbanization and industrialization, and furthermore you can conclude the answer stating that the impact of the urbanization and industrialization on the tribal people or tribal communities is a mixed kind of impact, where the impact is coupled with positive as well as negative, right? So if we could able to drive it in a systematic, in a proper way, so then we can just reduce the negative impacts and we can increase the positive impacts with proper awareness and with proper thing. So that's where what we have to do. So the policy makers have to keep a kind of timeline. Let's say, for example, if you want to construct construct an industry. So in such a situation, what further you can do is that, so you can systematically keep a timeline. So let's say, for example, 5 years, 6 years. So slowly you can train the tribal people with some technological skills. So skill inbuilt you can try to do. So then you can educate them. Then you can slowly rehabilitate them slowly from their place to another places. So there you can just show them some important ways of life. So that's how, so it has to happen in a slow and strategic manner. So policy makers have to be very much careful with this, with respect to this, right? So that is one important aspect that you should remember. So these are all some of the important aspects and impacts that you should remember, and you have to just give and provide some sort of systematic case studies also, so that you will get more credibility to your answer. Right, friends? So any further inclusions or any further doubts with respect to this particular concept? So I hope most of the aspects we have covered. So these are some generic and generic kind of topics. So you have to remember and you have to understand this basic aspect. So what is it? So simply, what is urbanization and what is industrialization? So furthermore, so try to read about the characteristics of the tribes. So what are the important characteristics of the tribes, and what are the important characteristics of urbanization? What are the important characteristics of industrialization? So this further enhances your thing. Right? So this topic is related to unit 6.3 of paper 2. So from that particular section, the question has been picked and it has been given. So, right, so conclusion. So what kind of conclusion you can give? So here conclusion could be, you can say that the impact of the urbanization and industrialization on the tribal communities, it's a mixed impact. So which is clubbed with positive as well as negative. So when the policy makers takes some sort of measures, so here we can reduce the negative impact and increase the positive impacts, so with proper care. So, and when we take proper care in the formulation of the policy. So that's how you can say the impact is mixed impact. You can conclude like that. Right? So usually generally we'll feel that there could be negative impact. So rather we should mention about the mixed impact would be there. So there we can have positive as well as negative impacts. So thing is that we have to overweigh the positive impacts and we have to lower the negative impacts. So that should be the target, and that should be the aim of the policy makers. So that's how you can conclude. Is that clear? So that's with respect to today's discussion. So it is all about the impact of urbanization and industrialization on the tribal communities. So that's all, dear friends. So let's try to write answer for the question and try to submit it in the Telegram channel. So type Anthropology Guide in the Telegram. So you will find the channel and you can join there. And furthermore, you can just share your answer sheets to me. So yes. So that's what. So what's the question? There is no need to write impact of. So impact of urbanization and industrialization separately. No, not required. So you can just, the question is, as it is a 10 marker question, so you can just take it and you can just mention it in general way. Because if it is 15 marker question, you can go for separate impacts. So here, as it is a 10 marker question, so you can just define what are both of these things, and then you can just explain impact of urbanization, industrialization on tribal communities in a unified way. So that's how. So you don't get space also, you don't have that much leverage also. So that is how. Right? So shall we proceed, or shall we wind up the discussion? or any further doubts? Okay, so that's all for the day from my side, friends. So let's meet tomorrow with another important question. So till then, try to write answer for the question, try to revise all the questions that we have done previously. So thank you all for joining with me for the live session. So have a nice day.